Okay, testing. Looks like everything is working with the mic. Let's just get it slightly farther away so that audio levels are okay. And let's see if we have a new presidential candidate in about 5 minutes. Be right back. The wife just got home. Supposed to start already, but it's been on this we will begin shortly, and I'm pretty sure they pushed it back to 4 and it is 4:01, so we'll see. They're probably injecting dude with like all of the stimulants right now. On the whitehouse.gov's official YouTube page. Modern professional. All right. And now we wait. I guess I could minimize this. Just leave that up there and go search for other stuff. Do other things while we wait for this dude to come and display his melted brain for all of us to enjoy. United States of America, folks. Totally not a clown. Let's plug in the mouse. Okay, it looks like desktop audio is working good. For whenever, if ever, they come out. The count is 49,573. Oh, it's going down. I think a lot of people probably have been here for way longer than me. And are leaving because they're like, where the fuck is this guy? Obviously, talk to my wife about why I'm streaming. And the first thing she brings up is that dude called Zelensky Putin, which is just so hilarious. Dude's brain is absolutely melting. Oh, what's good, Deej? You know what? You're laughing because I said big boy press conference, but that's legitimately what they were calling it. That's not even my words. Like, I don't even think I would have thought to be that condescending, which he deserves. Don't get me wrong. But like, I should send you the clip. of Karine Jean-Pierre and oh fuck, what's his name? State Department dude. We're calling this his big boy press conference. Is that what we're calling it? And then Karine Jean-Pierre gets up there. Yes, we're calling it his big boy press conference. Like, god damn. With friends slash subordinates like that, who needs enemies, dude? Jesus Christ. And like, people wonder why there's that theory that he's getting sabotaged from the inside. I mean, fuck, dude, it kind of looks like it with what they're doing. But also, like, I understand the opposite side of, they could be trying to do everything that they can, and when you got a literal Parkinson's slash potential Alzheimer's patient as your commander-in-chief, there might be only so much that you can do. So. Wow. Every minute that goes by is just not looking too hot. Not looking too hot here. I want to be able to live react, but I also would like to, like, I don't know, go about my day, continue doing what I was doing. But only so much that I can sit here and wait for dude to come shit his pants on stage, which I do want to see. Trust me. I want to see this. I want to see the United States of America. And if you think I can't be president, then come watch. Watch me, Jack. Dude just completely passes out on stage. Come on, White House. Comments are turned off, of course. Just a steadily dropping number. How long has this been going on? This stream has been... Wow, dude. It's been going for almost an hour. This is crazy. Let's... In the meantime, go look at Biden calls the... Oh, wow, it's right there.
Wix gives you the power of AI
of
to build the website you need.
Look at all the lives.
With full business functionality.
I commend all the nations that stepped up when it counted.
My God, dude. I mean, that's an unfortunate pause place. So, like, anyone could get clipped like this with an unfortunate pause place. But, like, Jesus Christ, look at this guy. Even my grandma, who, like, she remembers the Democrats of old. And I'm not saying they've been a perfect party, but she remembers when there was actually a little bit of, like, for the worker and principle in politics. And even she just can't spin it anymore, And she wasn't doing it from, like, a malicious place, but in her own head, she wanted to believe that the Democrats were still the good guys, and now even she's like, oh my God, this is so bad. This is so bad.
Stand with Ukraine. I've said before, Russia will not prevail in this war. Ukraine will prevail in this war, and we'll stand with them every single step of the way. That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. You can beat President Putin. President Zelensky.
Oh my, and then he realizes Oh my god. Oh my god. There's like a 2-second delay. That's my first time seeing that. It's so cringe. Holy shit. And then there's like a 2-second delay, and he's just. Oh my. It's just in a colloquial sense, because I know that, like, technically, he's not probably the most powerful person in the entire world, even though that's like the colloquial saying. President of the United States is like most powerful person in the world, holds nuclear codes, all that. But let's be honest, we all know that, or anyone that doesn't have their head shoved so far up their own ass knows that there's, shadowy figures that hold a lot more power than this dude. I mean, this dude can't even probably wipe his own ass. So like, who's running the country? Obviously, he's not the most powerful person in the world, but in theory, he is. And look at this. Look at this. This is unbelievable.
I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President,
I'm better.
you are a hell of a lot better.
Was Zelensky still wearing his... Is this his normal green army fatigues? Dude. Oh my god. And at some point, if every single freeze frame of you looks like shit, you just look like shit. It's not just an unlucky freeze frame. Holy crap, dude. Look at that. My god. This is unbelievable. All right. Anything? Nothing? Still? Dude? Jesus Christ. Oh, we're down to almost below 48,000. More and more people clicking off. Holy crap. Is he just not going to come out? I don't know what looks worse, honestly. Wow. Started streaming 55 minutes ago. 55 minutes. Down 47. Wow. Are they just waiting long enough that the view count goes almost to 0 and then they can wheel him out there for 10 seconds? And is he having a medical emergency? What the fuck is happening? Chat is disabled. Yeah, I wonder why. Jesus, dude. Wow, man. Wild. dude's probably right. The final nail in the coffin. I mean, you would think we would have had plenty of quote unquote nails in the coffin. Plenty of final nails in the coffin years ago. In 2019, when I was sitting there, you know, how can this guy possibly govern for 4 years? And now these guys really were trying to run this guy for another 4 years. It's unbelievable. Time is running short. Wow. At what point do you turn it off? Like upwards of 4,000 people have just from when I started counting. I don't want this to just be a bunch of fucking blank airspace, but at what point do I just hit stop streaming, and then once I hear something, since these are remote, I can keep them on, and then I sprint back and start streaming again, because this is absolutely fucking nuts. This is just dumb. Like, regardless of if you inject him with every single fucking stimulant, this looks so bad that it doesn't matter if he comes out there and does a fucking cartwheel. This is insanity. What timeline did I get, dude? This is fucking nuts. This is crazy. Like, the longer this goes on, the more I think that dude might actually just come out here and step down. Like 25th Amendment himself. You know, there's been a lot of allusions to of mice and men. You know, Obama bringing old Biden down to the river to tell him about the rabbits, but like, damn, dude. They give him the old JFK talk and say like, "Hey, man, you don't step down yourself, you know." We still have some of those old motorcade vehicles that are in the old style, if you catch my drift. Jesus. And this is supposed to be at NATO, right? This is supposed to be a NATO press conference. Biden to speak at high stakes NATO press conference tonight. Live updates. Okay, it was scheduled to start at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That is 3:30 p.m. now, obviously, our time. Which we're going on an hour late. Going on a fucking hour late. Crazy. Hour late. Longer.
Biden, like, called
What I said was, like, at this point, he could come on stage full of all the fucking drugs and stimulants that are possible, do an entire ass cartwheel, and still, this looks so bad. The longer that it goes on with no Biden, no one coming up here and saying, here's what's going on, here's why we're not here, the more it seems like pushed out. Fucking idiots! You know, Obama was just literally watching every single press conference in the NATO one from earlier. He's just sitting there like, oh, Joe. I'm pretty sure it's a direct quote from Obama. I'm pretty sure this is a verbatim quote. Never underestimate Joe's ability to fuck something up. I'm pretty sure that's an exact Obama quote. And you might ask, well, why would he pick him as his vice president? It's because. Yes, that's literally why. That's literally why. Is because Obama's team basically told him, dude, you're a black guy with a Muslim sounding name. How are you gonna like shore up all the white liberals who have a little tinge of skepticism about you? That you're gonna be like a Malcolm X type? And he's like, what if I get Joe Biden, who's total like, you know, I'm from Delaware, you know, I'm with the working man, and just kind of a fucking bumbling idiot, but prior to dementia, and you know, you get the best of both worlds. It's the same thing that Trump did with Mike Pence. Trump knew all he needed was a shored up evangelical vote, but he knew that evangelicals would take one look at him and go, yeah, he can say that he's a Christian and like, you know, what's your favorite Bible verse? Oh, John 3:16, whatever he said. But he knows that like they're gonna see through it a little bit. But if he picks Mike Pence, then all of a sudden they're like, okay, I'm not voting so much for Trump, I'm voting for Mike Pence, and he shored up the evangelical vote completely.
driving to Sacramento. Just like waving at people.
It could be a lot. It's a little preachy, proselytizing, but at least he's not hurting anyone. Versus the fucking assholes stand outside and At people, you're gonna burn in hell. It's like fuck you, dude.
Baby has
Word. I'm gonna finish cleaning my bathroom, which is what I was doing when I've realized, holy shit, Biden's supposed to be coming out, and this might be a pivotal moment in American history, and I want to get my live reaction. But I guess we're not gonna get that for an indeterminate amount of time, so I'm gonna keep cleaning my bathroom. This is insane. Down to 43,000. Opa. Oops. I watched the total viewers drop from when I started watching. It was at 50K. We're down to 43,500. I don't know. Malta's easier to get a work permit. Permit. An employer's guide. Yeah, I wish. At a certain point, when do I just fucking boot up PCSX2, play some old retro James Bond on a PS2 emulator? Because wasting this amount of my day for a shitty president who has Parkinson's and Alzheimer's is not worth it. I got finite time on this earth.
.007, Dr. Nadanova is on that train. You must find a way to get on board. Hurry, 007, the train is getting away. 007, Dr. Nadanova is on that train. You must find a way to get on board.
That.
Hurry, 007, the train is getting away. .007, Dr. Nadanova is on that train. You must find a way to get on board. Underneath the train. You should be able to climb up from there.
Give me a save point. Oh, thank fucking God. Just reliving my childhood, waiting for President of the United fucking States.
Give me a damage report.
Sir, no damage.
Oh, shit. What? Motherfucker throws one single
Give me a
grenade.
damage report.
Sir, no damage.
Oh, you know we're slamming that fucking Desert Eagle, bro. Ammo.
Fire! Die! Let's see what you got! Is that all you got?
Oh, give that. Get absolutely fucking smoked. Hiding still, not out here. Showing off his little brain. Continue to play 007 Everything or Nothing PS2 edition.
You could shed some light on the situation, 007, by using your thermographic vision.
That's nice. Come back out, bro. Get absolutely fucking smoked. Oh, did I get a spat? I have a spaz 12? No.
You can't leave until you've completed all your objectives, 007.
Fucking my objectives, bro. Find, destroy 6 missile launch computers? Have I just not been doing that this entire fucking time? Where are those? Fucking, is this one of them? No? Anything else? honestly. Because it's a fucking joke. Anyways, here. Let's... How would this even work? Game capture. Yo, it fucking works. Here. Until we actually get to hear something from the fucking President of the United States. Watch me play some old school PS2 games. Oh, I have to shoot. That's dumb. I forgot about that. Alright, let's go back to the SIG. I love how that just like single fucking train car was dark. They're like, yeah, we can't afford.
I don't suppose we could just talk about this.
Forgot about Josh.
I guess not.
How do I do this again? I remember.
The electricity pond! It's your only chance!
Brother, walk into the fucking electricity. Make it easier on me. Shit. Brother, what the fuck? Oh, that's right. I have to hit him. That's the target. Alright, I'm definitely gonna die, but... I'm definitely dying. What? Oh, okay, it worked. Wow, half his health, like, twice. Why not? Grab one of those. What are you doing? I wanted to go sniper. Mother. Oh, I'm dead. I figured it out way faster than I did as a kid.
I don't suppose we could just talk about this.
Recall, but whatever. Alright, let's check again.
I guess not.
Oh my god, he's been live. Holy fucking shit. Holy shit. How long has he been live? Oh my god. Alright, alright. God damn it. God damn it. I was too wrapped up in James Bond.
It was to create an alliance of free and democratic nations that would commit themselves to a compact of collective defense. Standing together, they knew we'd all be safer. An attack on one would be treated as an attack on all. And it's worked because a would-be aggressor knows if they attack one of us,
Come on,
they'll be attacked
Prescore.
by all of us.
Knives out.
Sending
for
that
this
message is the best
motherfucker.
way to deter aggression and prevent wars in the first place. For those who thought NATO's time had passed, they got a rude awakening when Putin invaded Ukraine. Some of the oldest and deepest fears in Europe roared back to life because once again, a murderous madman was on the march. But this time, no one
This
cowered
interpreter is
in
killing me.
appeasement, especially the United States. We collected intelligence that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine months before the invasion. I directed the intelligence community to be a significant amount of intelligence be declassified so I could start building an international coalition to oppose the invasion. Then in February, some of you remember, I warned the world that the invasion was imminent. I rallied a coalition of 50 nations from Europe to Asia to help Ukraine defend itself. Many foreign policy experts thought, as Putin amassed Russian forces just 100 miles north of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, but Putin thought it was the mother home of Russia.
Oh my god, already? Oh my god, already. His brain wants to fucking melt. Really? 4 more years of this, dude? Holy shit.
The capital would fall in less than a week. But the Ukrainian people, backed by a coalition to help build, stopped them. Today, Kyiv still stands, and NATO stands stronger than it has ever been. During the week of this summit, several heads of states made it a point in their statements to thank the United States and to thank me personally for all that NATO has achieved. NATO is not only stronger, NATO is bigger because we led the charge to bring in Finland and Sweden into the alliance, and it makes a gigantic difference. Excuse me. Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's made it clear that he would feel no obligation to honor Article 5. He's already told Putin, and I quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." In fact, the day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius. It was wonderful. Some of you forgot that, but that's exactly what he said. But I made it clear, a strong NATO is essential to American security. And I believe the obligation of Article 5 is sacred. And I would remind all Americans, Article 5 is invoked only once in NATO's long history. And that was to defend America after 9/11. I made it clear that I will not bow down to Putin. I will not walk away from Ukraine. I will keep NATO strong. That's exactly what we did, and exactly what we'll continue to do.
With one of the other
Now,
nuclear superpowers.
the future of American
and
policy
I will
is up to the
continue
American
arm and
people.
Fund one of the most
This is much more than a
nations
political
on Earth.
question.
Nice.
It's more than that. It's a national security issue.
Cool.
Don't reduce this to the usual
Tell me more.
testament that people talk about, issues of being a political campaign. It's far too important. It's about the world we live in for decades to come. Every American must ask herself or himself, is the world safer with NATO? Are you
No.
safer?
No.
Is your family safer?
No.
I believe the American people know. The answer to all those questions is yes.
No, we're
I
not,
believe
dude. We haven't
the American
needed
people
NATO
understand
since the fucking
that
Cold
America's
War ended.
stronger
You fucking
because of our
asshole.
alliances. I believe the
No.
American consensus from Truman to Reagan to me still holds today.
Fuck,
America
bro.
cannot retreat from the world. We must lead the world. We're an indispensable nation, as Madeleine Albright wrote. Now let
Madeleine
me turn
Albright.
to
Oh,
3
we're
other
quoting
key
her, huh?
issues. Just this morning, we had a great economic report showing inflation is down. Overall prices fell last month. Core
Oh, here we
inflation is
go.
the lowest it's
More
been in 3
gaslighting on
years.
the economy's actually great.
Prices are falling for cars,
actually great.
appliances, and airfare.
Yeah, you struggling?
Grocery
Your
prices have
experience
fallen
is
since the start
invalid
of the year.
because some
We're
cherry
gonna keep
picked
working to
numbers
take down
seem
corporate
like
greed to
they're
bring those
kind
prices
of
down
maybe all
further.
right a little bit if you squint
Meanwhile,
real hard and look at them.
Trump's calling for a 10% tariff on everything Americans buy, including food from overseas, vegetables, and other necessities. And economists tell us that would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. It's a tax of $2,500 a year. Second, our efforts to secure the border, southern border, is working. After Trump killed the bipartisan effort to secure the border, Republicans and Democrats had worked on, because he thought it would benefit me and make him a loser, Republicans walked away. So I took executive action last month. As a consequence, working with Mexico, border encounters have gone down over 50%. The current level is lower today than when Trump left office. Third, for months, the United States has been working to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, to bring the hostages
No,
home,
you fucking haven't.
to create a
Fuck
path
you.
for peace and stability in the Middle East.
Go fuck yourself.
6 weeks ago, I laid out a detailed plan in writing. It was endorsed by the UN Security Council, the G7. That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas. So I sent my team to the region to hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close, but we're making progress. The trend is positive, and I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now. Let me conclude where I began. We're the United States of America. We are the indispensable nation. Our leadership matters. Our partnerships matter. This moment matters. We must rise to meet it. With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given a list of people to call on here. Reuters, Jeff Mason.
I've been given a list of people to call on. Oh my god. You know, I'm not the hugest fan of breaking points, but, like, I will say, Sauger seems like he fucking called it in that regard. Holy fucking shit, dude. Wow. I wonder if he was supposed to say that, or if that he just said the literal quiet part out loud. Wow, dude. I've been given a list of people to call on. Holy shit. Who is this? Is this KJP? Is that Karine? I swear to God, all of you motherfuckers who get called on, I don't give a shit. Every single one of you climbing careerist fucks better ask tough questions of this motherfucker. I swear to God, if he gets an entire list of relatively softball questions, fuck all of you. You can't call yourselves journalists, you slimeballs. I swear to God, be actual fucking reporters and journalists and ask tough questions of supposedly the most privileged and powerful person in the entire fucking world. I swear to God.
Mr. President, your political future has hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments?
Is that true, or are we gonna get a UAW, whatchamacallit, like a tweet, just like the Border Patrol? Is that true? We having to fucking fact check Biden in real time, just like they used to love to do to Trump. Oh, fact check in real time. Let's see this shit. UAW endorse Biden. Let's see if this is true. January 24th. Reuters, as of an hour ago. I mean, this is Reuters reporter right here, but as of an hour ago, UAW considering next steps on worries Trump could beat Biden. Oh my God.
Into your decision to stay, and separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president. Did I think she was
Oh my God. Wait. Yo.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president. Oh my God, it's happening. Oh my God, it's fucking happening. I mean, anyone with a brain, we said that this was going to happen since 2019, but like, holy fucking shit, they really carted this guy out here and expected, after calling Zelensky Putin, that this wasn't going to happen. He can't, don't make me start to feel sorry for this fucking asshole. This dude's been an asshole for 4 decades in politics. Fuck this guy. Don't make me start to feel sorry for him. Jesus Christ. Jill, you and like Hunter and every single person, just career climbing motherfucker. Like, I don't have a lot of empathy or sympathy for a war criminal piece of shit like Joe Biden. But at a certain, like, basal human level, you start to feel bad. Because, holy crap, everyone around him are just lizard people. What the fuck? Put away your own ambitions, career climbing, and realize this is a narcissistic asshole who won't step aside on his own and needs the nudging by the people closest. One of the reasons why I feel like he's so indignant, besides the fact that he's just a narcissist and in denial of his own condition, is that he's got yes men and women around him that he nominally trusts that are whispering in his ear, no, they're all wrong, Joe. They just want you to step aside because they're all climbers. When in reality, the real people who are climbers and just careerists are the people closest to him, who either want to stay in the administration or, like, for example, Jill Biden probably loving those Vogue covers that she's getting, and then Hunter doesn't want to go to jail and wants to continue to capitalize off of the Biden name. Because where the fuck are the Bidens going to be after Joe? You know? Beau passed away. He was, like, out of the Biden family, probably the most, you know, if there was ever going to be a dynasty, which is so funny, we secede from Britain, and yet we have these, like, almost like royal families still. But if anyone, it was going to be Beau. Definitely not going to be fucking crackhead Hunter. And what's Jill going to do? Just go start writing a book? You know, they want to stay in power for as much as humanly possible. And then I bet they're going to try and run the Obama playbook. Just become like a lifestyle brand.
So let's start there. Number one.
He doesn't even realize. I need to play it one more time.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president. Good Lord.
But I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president.
Oh, really?
I beat him once, and I will beat him again. Secondly,
doesn't look that way.
The idea, I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that senators and congressmen running for office worry about the ticket is not unusual. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now, later in the campaign. So it was a long...
Oh, we're getting a little bit of the ornery old person. Oh my God. Sorry. I'm just texting my wife like, oh my God, babe. Yeah, and it honestly looks like they might have, you know, doped this guy up, but there's only so much that, you know, if we had a Parkinson's drug, dude would be on it, but like, there is no miracle drug for this. Let me just send her a link to the specific. Step aside on Zelensky. She were at the top of the ticket. Fucking Let's continue.
Long way to go in this campaign. And so I'm just going to keep moving. Keep moving. And because, look, I got more work to do. We got more work to finish. There's so much, we made so much progress. Think about it. Think about where we are economically relative to the rest of the world.
We're declining, you fucking... Oh my god, I'm gonna lose my mind. The amount of just bullshit and gaslighting. As if we're not a fucking nation in decline. What year is it gonna be? 2026 that we're 250 years old? Motherfucker! We've a blip in, like, human history. If we're, oh my god, if we're gonna, like, compare ourselves, even Britain, the country that we split off from, yeah, they've had their ups and downs, but they've been around a lot longer than this, and we are, like, just speed running our way out of being the global superpower. Jesus Christ, dude. Like, if America was a car, we broke down, and then a bunch of crooks stopped by on the side of the road, went like, oh, look over there. We looked, turned our head, and then we came back, and the fucking wheels, the catalytic converter, I sound like Biden, catalytic converter, you know, the fucking radio, the seat, everything but the driver's seat that you're sitting in, everything has just been fucking gutted. And they went off and sold it, and don't give a flying fuck, because they can go wherever in the world, because they're all rich. And now we're a country of, what, 350 million people, where most people are, like, struggling? Yeah, sure, we have, you know, in terms of overall nations, we do have it a lot better. I'm not denying that, you know, in America, relatively in certain aspects, we do have a lot of things going for us. But what we could be, like a whole nation of basically 350 million people who are all doing really well, at the very least, the American dream, the middle class, that's all but gone, dude. Especially for the younger generations, you know, my generation, millennial, and then going forward, the Zoomers and beyond. It's like, it's not impossible, but is it like it used to be? I'll just come here, put in hard work, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, and you can make it, you know? I'm gonna go get a blue-collar job at the factory, and I'll be able to put a down payment on a house, and sure, I might have to put in some hours of overtime, but, you know, I'm going to do it for my family, and I'm going to get a nice retirement, and, you know, I can afford that new car, and this is just on one salary, one blue-collar salary. Now it's like, sure, if you're a really skilled tradesman who's making good money, you could maybe support your family, but you're going to be, like, making sure that you spend money very tightly. You know, God forbid you live in California and you're trying to buy any real estate, because BlackRock and Vanguard are like, oh, sorry, we got to that residential house that, you know, we're not buying it for a family. my god. My wife just responded. Said, wow, I saw it. Wow, he's so fucked. They have to take him down, dude. I mean, like, yeah. Let's see. Let's see if
Name
there's any
me a
more.
world leader who wouldn't want to trade places with our economy. We've created over 800,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million. I mean, so things are moving.
And then I'll stop pausing so much. This is something that he does so much, and Dave Smith said it really, really well, is that he starts a thought, he realizes that the thought gone, vanished in his brain, and he does not have the ability to claw it back. And so, what does he do? He just fucking bails on that thought. Oh, must not have been that important anyways. And boom, we're on to the next topic. Fantastic. Leader of the free world, everyone.
We got more to go. Working class people still need help. Corporate greed is still at large.
I know I said I would stop pausing, and I'm no fan of Trump. You know, it's like the disclaimer that you got to give, or else the fucking shit libs will all be like, oh my God, you're just a Trump supporter, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? You're not going to convince them anyways. They're fucking no better than MAGA. They're blue MAGA. But for the people who actually aren't insane and can have a nuanced conversation, it's just really funny, the observation that they used to love to, you know, make fun of, and rightfully so, it's pretty fucking funny, make fun of the Trump. But then now you got Biden not even making any movement, just automaton, frozen, just absolutely fucking frozen in this position.
Their prices, the corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. They're coming down, and so I'm optimistic about where things are going. Danny Kemp, AFP.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about your, you mixed up Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier.
Yes. Ooh, do I see a pixel? I think I see a pixel. Yes. Thank you, Danny Kemp. Ask him, like, hey, man, it wasn't even that long ago that you literally just did the like, it's almost endearing when your grandparent does it. The like, oh, so-and-so, oh, and they call you like 3 different names before they actually settle on the right name, and you're almost like, oh, grandma, you're getting a little old. Oh, isn't that cute? This is the fucking president of the United States. Good Lord. Thank you for asking about it.
Today.
Holy crap.
And you now have sort of your key allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on that. And officials here are saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing in my leading this conference? Have you seen?
Yes! Oh, yes, bro. Knives fucking out, and then it's gonna make him get all ornery and shit. And, oh my God, it's gonna be great.
Seen a more
yes,
successful conference?
Let's go.
What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, here, I mean, Putin. I said, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky. And then I added 5 other names. Look, guys, the idea anybody suggests that we haven't had an incredibly successful conference.
Stress.
How many times did you hear
right? I think I have 2
in
of
that
them
conference?
sitting on the other one. I literally
I know
need
it
both
sounds
of
too
them right now.
self-serving, but
It's just like
other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden, because Biden did the following. Look, folks, this is
look, Jack.
well, anyway. I
bailed
thought
on
it was the
another
most
fucking
successful
thought.
conference
Oh my
I've attended
God,
in a
bro.
long time, and find me a world leader who didn't think it was. Next one.
Sagar was right again. He is just like barely answering the questions and then just moving on and just check another box, check another box, check another box. And he's probably going to be like, oh, you know, I answered 12 questions, and it's like, well, did you really? Did you ramble off on some tangent and not answer the question in any meaningful capacity, nor inspire confidence in anyone, and then call it a dub? Let's be honest, that's what's happening.
Sorry, Nancy Cordes, CBS.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned other instances in history where presidents have faced a challenge, but what makes this moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling on you to reconsider your decision to stay in the race. It's your friends, supporters, people who think you've done a great job over the past 4 years.
Begging him
Have
to
you
just
spent time
gracefully
thinking
step down at
about
this point,
what it would
and
mean
he's
for
just
your
a
legacy,
defiant old
which you've
fuck.
worked decades to build, if you stay in the race, despite the concerns that voters say they have, and you lose to someone who you yourself have argued is unfit to return to the Oval Office?
Well, look, I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started.
Oh, I'm so sure.
As you recall, understandably, many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward, can't do that, it's going to cause inflation, things are going to skyrocket, the debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now from mainstream economists? 16 economic Nobel laureates said I've done a hell of a job. That under my plans so far and what's going to happen in the future if I'm reelected, that things are going to get much better. Our economy is growing. I was determined when I got elected to stop the trickle-down economic theory, that if the wealthy did very well, everybody else would do well.
Oh, is that why
My
you
dad
crushed
was
a
a
fucking
well-read,
railroad
decent
strike?
guy.
You piece
I don't
of
remember
shit.
much trickling down on his kitchen table. Middle-class people and working-class people need help. And so what happened is I decided to was able to implement as president what I believed when I was a senator. And that is that the way to build this economy is from the middle out and the bottom up. That way we grow the economy. And the wealthy still do very well. They do fine. And guess what? Find me an economist, a mainstream economist who said we haven't done well. What have we not done that isn't working right now?
Find me someone who
And so
doesn't
we got
agree
more to
with
do,
me.
though. We got to finish the job.
I could literally go like.
And by the
search
way, I
right
come
now
from the
and find
corporate
one.
state of the world. Delaware has more corporations registered in Delaware than every other state in the nation combined. I'm not anti-corporate, but corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. Doubled. It's time things get back in order a little bit. It's time, for example, if I'm reelected, we're going to make sure that rents are kept at 5% increase of corporate rents for apartments and the like and homes are limited to 5%. We're going to make a lot of changes that I've been talking about because we're going to continue to grow this economy. And by the way, I know, remember how I got so roundly criticized for being so pro-union, not labor, union. Well, guess what? I've been the most pro-union labor president in history.
I've been the most pro-union labor president in history. Jesus goddamn Christ. This dude, straight to jail if you pulled this guy over. Good Lord. But A, no one criticized you for being pro-union, you fuck. Even though I can't stand your fucking guts, I gave a slight little benefit of the doubt and like actual props when, you supported. Now, I think it was cynical. I don't think you actually give a fuck. But regardless of how we get there, the end result is still better than the opposite. When you supported the UAW, cool. That was good. Even though I don't think it actually came from like a place of being pro-union. But you just have to hop, skip, and a jump 2 feet sideways and go, oh, what was his other actions regarding unions? Oh, using the executive powers to crush a railroad strike because you knew that it would look absolutely fucking terrible if the rail workers basically organized one of the most effective strikes in American history. Because if you don't know, truckers and rail workers basically keep this country moving. And if they were to strike, barring getting crushed by fucking douchebags like this, they can exert a ton of power because, you know, they weren't even asking for that much. They were just like, hey, maybe treat us not like slaves, basically. Treat us like human beings, and we know that we produce billions of dollars in profits for you, so like maybe just give a tiny little fraction of that to us. And basically the rail, you know, companies looked at Biden and they're like, oh, are you going to do something about this, dude? This might look really bad for you. And obviously we don't want to give them a whole lot. And Biden was like, well, it does say here in the Constitution that I am one of the sole arbiters that can like force workers back to their jobs and crush a strike. And he did that. So fuck off saying, oh, I'm somehow so pro-labor. Get fucked.
A joke. And guess what? We had the Treasury Department do a study. When unions do better, everybody.
I hate when he does this. Oh my God, I knew he was going to do this. I hate when he does this. Oh my God. Leans in. He's already talking at a whisper, so he gets whispery even for that level. I wanted to lock up every single solitary black person. And he starts becoming this ornery little shit of an old man, this old decrepit man. And I think he thinks it looks endearing in his head, but in reality, it just makes him look like even more of the douchebag that he is.
Everybody does better. Everybody does better. And we talk about how, for example, remember when we talked about getting the computer chip industry back in the United States? Used to be 40% of the industry. We invented the chip. 40% of the industry was in the United States. And former presidents decided that the best way to do it is find the cheapest labor in the world, send the product over there, and import what the product was. And so what did I do? I was told not to go over to Europe, to Asia, including Europe, but Asia. And I remember going to South Korea, convincing them to invest $20 billion in the United States to build computer chip factories. And I asked why when they finally decided to do it. And the answer was because you have the safest economy in the world and you have the best workers in the world. So the whole idea here is we've invested, there's over $50 billion in investment in computer chip manufacturing just coming in the bean. None of you thought that would happen. None of you thought that would happen. But it's happening. It's happening. And it's going to grow economies. All through, and by the way, red states and blue states. Manufacturers as much in red states as blue states. I've made no distinction. So my generic point is that the idea that we can't continue to build and grow the economy, make it fairer. And like I said, from my standpoint, when the middle class does well, that's when the whole economy grows. The poor have a shot, the wealthy do well. But the wealthy got to start paying their taxes.
As a follow-up, sir, you mentioned that your Vice President Kamala Harris would be ready to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies to have control over their bodies. Secondly, her ability to handle almost any issue on the board. This was a hell of a prosecutor. She was a first-rate person, and in the Senate, she was really good. I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she...
Brother, she came after you and called you racist on the debate stage in 2018 or 2019. And honestly, I've been seeing this floating around, and I had this feeling from the start. I think that Biden picked Kamala for a single reason only, because his team basically said, she is the least liked in the entire fucking race, so if you get elected, ain't no way they're gonna try and push you out. Now, obviously, here we are, they're trying to push him out because he's gotten so bad that it's that much of a liability, but you know, it's been bad for a while, and honestly, if he had someone that was like really politically up and coming in the Democratic Party and a lot more, you know, likable to normie Democrats, then they would have gotten this guy out of here so much sooner, you know? One way or another, if you know what I mean, like Lenny'd him or JFK'd him or something. Because Kamala, they know, is just a fucking train wreck of a human being, you know, Cackles McGee over here, then he's got almost like an insurance policy of, they're not going to do shit to me because they don't want her. And him saying she's a hell of a prosecutor, and then I'll jump off this topic and continue. She, if I remember correctly, and I remember this being like a story in like Bernie circles, because everyone was like, fuck this guy. But I remember she had a whole story written about her where someone dug back into her past as a prosecutor and found that after receiving evidence that would exonerate or prove the innocence of a guy on death row, she kept him in there. And I know the prosecutor is supposed to, like, you know, that's their whole job, is like, I'm supposed to go after the person and prove that they did it. But there's a certain point where you're like, oh, this is undeniable evidence that the guy is innocent. My lawyerly responsibility to keep hammering, you know, as the prosecutor doesn't really apply when I know someone is fucking innocent and we're going to put him to death as the state of California, knowing that he's innocent and this other person is actually guilty. I think I can put away my prosecutorial, you know, duty now that I know the dude isn't the right guy, but she tried to keep him in jail and tried to not allow the evidence to be admitted in court. That's the kind of fucking person she is. She's a, you know, people saying heels up Harris. She climbed in various different ways, being a just complete lizard person. And I'm not saying I know anything that happened behind closed doors, but let's just say I wouldn't be surprised if she did some uncouth things to achieve her status where she is right now. So yeah, I'm so sure I wouldn't have picked her if she wasn't a great person. Again, fuck you.
She was qualified to be president from the very beginning. I made no bones about that. She is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her. Felicia Schwartz, Financial Times.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Come on, Felicia.
Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about...
AKA
if you look at my
account for my
schedule
sundowner syndrome.
since I made that stupid
Nice.
mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore. I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball? I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing. And I have, I don't know how many, don't hold me to it, roughly 20 major events. Someone with
You're the
thousands of
president
people
right
showing.
now. He's not. You fucking. Oh my god.
And so,
I'm gonna lose my mind.
I just
I'm
think
gonna
it's
lose my mind.
better. I always have an inclination,
I need a
whether I
drink.
was playing sports or doing politics, just to keep going, not stop. I just gotta just pace myself a little more. Pace myself. And the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling into 15 time zones a week before. Anyway, that's what it was about. That's what it was about. And by the way, even with that, I love my staff, but they add things all the time. At the very end, I'm catching hell from my wife for that. Anyway, I'm sorry, Zeke Miller, Associated Press.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two questions for you. First, on the NATO summit, President Zelensky, in your meeting with him, he pressed you to lift your limitations on the Ukrainian use of American weapons, saying that, in his public remarks afterwards, saying that Ukraine cannot win the war unless those limitations are lifted. Are you reconsidering your position on that?
Oh my God, this is actually a really crucial question, because Zelensky and the Ukrainians are fucking suicidal, basically. They would love for us to just send them even more weapons and for there to be no red lines. AKA, we want to be able to strike deep into Russia and essentially spark nuclear war. Please, for the love of God, I know that your brain is melting out of your fucking ears, but please be at least sane enough to go, no, Zelensky, we're not going to let you start World War III in this fool's errand of thinking that you're going to beat fucking Russia. Oh my God.
And then secondly, following up on Felicia's question there, leaders of your own party have said that they're not worried about that debate. They're worried about the next bad night and the bad night after that. How can you reassure the American people that you are up to the task and that there won't be more bad nights at a debate stage or somewhere else?
First thing about Zelensky asking for the ability to strike deep into Russia. We've allowed Zelensky to use American weapons in the near term and the near or abroad into Russia. Whether or not he should be attacked. For example, should Zelensky, he's not. If he had the capacity to strike Moscow, strike the Kremlin, would that make sense? It wouldn't. The question is, what's the best use of the weaponry he has, and the weaponry we're getting to him? I've gotten a more long-range capacity, as well as defensive capacity.
For a while, dude is cooked,
and so our military is where I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief,
I want to have like empathy for this guy because
the
I
chief
can't
of staff
stand
of the
him,
military,
but at a certain
as
point,
well
it's like,
as
goddamn,
the Secretary of
you almost start
Defense
to
and
feel
our
sorry.
intelligence people. And we're making a day-to-day basis on what they should
Fuck
and
the
shouldn't
people
go,
around
how
him.
far
They're
they should
not-
go in.
they're not good friends
That's a
with
logical
family.
thing
It's
to do.
crazy
Second question related
what they're
to
doing.
Bad nights, sir. How can you reassure the American people that you won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage or on some matter of foreign policy?
Well, I tell you what, the best way to assure them is the way I assure myself.
His trajectory
And that
is
is,
like
am I
this
getting
on
the
a
job done?
day-to-day basis. let
Am I
alone
getting the job done?
4 years? Are you
Can you
kidding me?
name me somebody who's gotten more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs just last week. So
I don't know,
if I slow
FDR?
down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet.
Oh my God, when he does this with his face, also, whoever's Botoxing this dude needs to chill the fuck out, bro. You're not fooling us. He doesn't look young, and now he just looks like a candidate on that show Botched. Good God.
None. What we got here? Merrick, Pulaski Radio.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you?
Before we get to this question, it is sad, man, but honestly, when you're dealing with a country as big as the U.S., you need a strong, competent leader. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is a fucking joke. It's been a joke since he took office in 2020. It's crazy, and it's kind of funny because, like, all of the Western allied so-called nations, they all, like, you know, everyone knows. Anyone with a brain and 2 eyes and ears that's seen him, especially the decline, but he was already bad in 2019. It's funny how all the other world leaders, and all the reporters, they kind of just like, the emperor has no clothes situation, nothing to see here, whatever. And obviously the floodgates have opened, so now knives are out for this guy. and everyone's finally asking the tough questions that everyone else who isn't a complete, party hack, essentially, already was asking. Anyone with a brain is like, oh wow, that dude looks like he's old as shit and could die at any moment, and his brain is not working. Should we really have that dude as the leader of the free world? No. But it's so funny how they all just completely, nothing to see here, until finally it became socially acceptable, because it got so bad, for everyone to start, mentioning what everyone already knew. Everyone already knew this dude has, like, maybe Parkinson's, maybe Alzheimer's, maybe both. Something else, I don't know, but everyone knew he should not be the president of the United States. And it's just funny how everyone had their purposeful blinders on, until finally now they all got the courage, the cojones, or I honestly think it's the marching orders, to really start asking what they should have been asking for the last 5 years.
I'm well.
The elections in the US have consequences around the world. You have pretty high standing in Europe. I just asked President Macron about you, and he said we are happy to have him as the president of the United States.
Oh, and how did
But
Macron do in the last election?
There's a concern.
Not good at all.
Many people in Poland and across Europe are worried that the former president may win the election. And there's a lot of concern that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, stop supporting Ukraine, or push Ukraine to give up territories to Russia.
They're correct.
And yourself was warning just 2 minutes ago about it. So my question is, do you think that Europe will be left on its own if Donald Trump wins the election? And what's your advice to European leaders to prepare for possible US disengagement?
Well, look, I think, how can I say this without sounding too self-serving? I'm not having any of my European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win. You can't let this guy come forward. It'd be a disaster. It'd be a disaster. I mean, I think he said in one of his rallies, don't hold me to this, recently, where NATO, I just learned about NATO, or something to that effect. Foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian. That worries, as I tell you from Poland, that worries Europe. That worries Poland. And nobody, including the people of Poland, think that if he wins in Ukraine, he's going to stop in Ukraine, that that's going to be the end of it.
This is the line that they've been saying about this bullshit-ass Ukraine war and Trump, who, I'm not a fan of Trump, but the dude's political instincts are, a lot better. It's not hard to be better than Biden. But, I disagree with some of his foreign policy decisions, but then other ones where it's like, hey, maybe we can actually have some diplomacy instead of constantly just like tension with these so-called enemies around the world. Why don't we try to not be as bad of enemies? And then, God, who knows, in the future we could be allies. And it was, instead of just towing this like State Department war hawk line of we need to constantly be warring, basically, whether it's a war of words or a proxy war like we're doing in Ukraine, we always need to be like at war. There's this new Cold War going on. And like Trump, to his credit, in a lot of different aspects, whether it be not, some of his actions on Russia were a little antagonistic, but then other times he would be, a little bit more diplomatic with Putin, or like, they tried to clown him for being diplomatic with Kim Jong-un, but it's like, hey, I don't know. The dude exists, even though I think he has, of course, he's a despotic, authoritarian leader. But does that mean that we have to, like, basically war with the guy in a terms of words while he builds up the potential for nuclear strikes, essentially. Now, I don't think that's going to be like anytime super soon. Exactly. The military industrial complex. Exactly. And the non-elected leaders in the deep state who, you know, pull the strings. And I think that's why they really, really don't want Trump, because, you know, not even like a super lefty anti-war person at all by any stretch, but if you don't just go along 100% with all of their war games and the fact that they want to just take over all of these countries who aren't like the Western allies, weaken them militarily, economically, if you don't go along with them to the T, you're persona non grata. And, you know, Biden was perfect because he's just basically pro-war at his core, but then also his brain is melting out of his ears, so like he's not the one making these foreign policy decisions. Obviously it's like the generals and whoever is in, you know, our State Department who's like, hey, we would really like to send some more F-16s over to Ukraine, and Biden's like, what? Oh yeah, whatever. Doesn't even remember what question he was asked. Connor, how can you even get past them though? Like, you elected a new guy or party, but it's still the same shit. That's the problem. That's literally the problem, is like when you have unelected, no term limits deep state, regardless of who comes in, even if Trump came in and he wanted to like completely buck the establishment, go along with war, and he was like, no, we're going to be diplomatic and do all this stuff and be anti-war, they would find ways to not let him. And am I, you know, naive to think that they wouldn't sabotage him in one way or another? You know, varying degrees of nefariousness, if that's a word. I think they're capable of anything. That's the issue, is the rot is so to its core that once the cancer realizes that it's being circumvented or cut out, it grips stronger, and it tries to get rid of whatever's trying to get rid of it. So it would kind of go the same way as JFK. That's kind of what I'm alluding to, is whoever comes in and doesn't just say the things on the campaign trail, but actually means them and tries to implement them, they're going to take them in a uncovered motorcade through the streets of Texas, if you know what I mean.
And so what I can say is, I think I'm the best qualified person to do the job, to make sure that Ukraine does not fall, that Ukraine succeeds, that the
Ukraine
European
is not
alliance
win the
stays
war.
strong.
That is the biggest lie
You may
ever.
recall,
You're
no
just
one was
throwing
talking about Finland
increasingly
joining
old
NATO.
Ukrainians into the meat
I remember
grinder that
talking
is
to
the
Putin
Ukraine war.
right after we
And
got
Russia's
elected
just
in
literally
Geneva.
draining the clock.
And he
That's
was
it.
talking about what we
There's
should
gonna be
do,
no one left in
we
Ukraine.
couldn't be
And
in
then what
Eastern
do you
Europe, etc.
We use our troops.
And I said, you're
That would be a
looking
disaster,
for the
obviously.
Finlandization of Ukraine, because you're going to get the NATOization of Finland. And about 4 weeks later, I got a call. No, that's not true. Probably 5 months later, from the president of Finland, could he come and see me? Because in my office, I invited him to the Oval Office. We sat down and talked. He said he wanted to join NATO. Could I help? And I did. It wasn't automatic. And then I got a call from the Swedes. I beg your pardon? And so Finland joined NATO. 800-mile border is a significant, and they were already allies, but they weren't part of NATO. And you heard, I think you heard, maybe, I can't recall whether he said it publicly or in our closed meeting, but he wouldn't mind it being repeated. He said, we decided in Finland, the people of Finland decided they had to be part of NATO. It was in our interest because of the joint ability to be together, to dissuade any attack on Finland. And the same thing with Sweden. It took a lot of selling to some folks, particularly in Turkey and other places, to agree to the expansion. But it expanded. And we're a hell of a lot stronger because of it. We're more secure because of it.
No,
and
we're
by
not.
the way,
It literally
I was
makes
able
us
to get
less
50
secure
other
because
nations,
it brings us closer
50,
to the brink of a nuclear war.
to support Ukraine. 50. And we're
There's
able
no
to bring
reason
about
for
a
us to be,
coalition of
you know,
Europe
Cold War
and Asia,
fighting with Russia
Japan
in
and South
today's
Korea.
day and age. We got past
I just
that.
we talked about
NATO should have
AUKUS, and we
basically
talked
been
about the
disbanded
relationship
for all
between
intents and
Australia,
purposes. We
New
didn't
Zealand,
need it anymore after the
Japan,
Cold War. But it's
South
become
Korea, the United
an
States.
economic
We're making the
warfare
world safer and
alliance,
stronger
basically.
because we have to deal with the new
NATO
arrangements
does not
that
make us
exist in the
stronger.
world.
NATO is one of the
The
biggest
Cold War
reasons
is
why
over.
the
The
Ukrainian
post-war era is over. What is going to replace it?
Russian war happened.
And I respectfully suggest I have a pretty good idea what that should be. I've convinced a lot of people to follow it, and we're just going to get stronger.
Like, think about it just really quick. Think about it from our perspective when, you know, during the Cold War, the Russians tried to, you know, move nuclear launch capabilities to Cuba. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was, you know, supposedly one of the closest we've ever been to nuclear war. And then Ukraine, which is literally right on the border of Russia, so basically doing the exact same thing that we got really mad at them for, we're like, no, we're going to induct Ukraine, one of the most corrupt countries in the entire world, for the record, into NATO, a military alliance, and that comes with the territory, hey, we're going to move, you know, first strike nuclear capabilities into this state, right on your border. Everyone, Mearsheimer said this 10 years ago. Hey, that's kind of a really, really, you know, antagonistic thing for you to do. Maybe let's not do that. Maybe we could, you know, just be diplomatic with Russia. Why do we have to keep fighting with them? And yet, we're like, no, we're going to keep expanding NATO, even though we made a promise that we wouldn't. You know, I know it wasn't in writing, sure, but it was a promise made in good faith that, hey, we don't need this anymore. So, and now I can't give you the exact number of how many countries we've inducted, but just completely, you know, said fuck you to Russia. We don't really care anymore, and we're gonna keep antagonizing. Let's see. NATO did state it would not move 1 inch to the east, yet it's moved 1,000 miles. Exactly. That's exactly what I was just saying. It was like a promise made in good faith at the time. And of course, Russia at the time was like, hell yeah, dude, thank you. Cold War's over. I know we're not the best of friends right now, but maybe we can like engage in diplomacy and like start moving towards normalized relations so that we're not just big enemies that have to rely on mutually assured destruction to not go to war. Maybe we can like be semi-allies in the future. And yet we're like behind the scenes, almost like the mean girl on campus who's like, oh yeah, I'll totally potentially be your friend. And then behind the scenes, you're like moving your little chess pieces of like, you know, but I'm going to induct this person and get them on my side and them on my side. And I'm going to basically make them a pariah state, even though we were like, oh yeah, totally, I'll be your friend. Like there's no more hostilities between us anymore. And it's just such a snake move. And I'm not over here saying Putin's like a good dude who's like just what a great leader, total progressive, love everything he's done. But you can't deny the guy is like really measured and strategic, and compared to what our State Department is, he looks like a saint compared to some of the absolute psychotic actions that our State Department has made, pushing us closer to a nuclear war. And thank God he's not just as psychotic, because we could have already had we could have already been living in fallout by now. Thank God he's, you know, a little bit more like, oh my God, you know, these dudes really are crazy. I really hope the next administration or whatever kind of keeps them in check a little bit more, because they would really test it. You know, they're not scared enough of nuclear war that they're going to, you know, not attack, basically. They're their own entity. They just are basically the most powerful part of government now, not the executive branch, clearly.
David
They've
Sanger.
gone rogue with the treasury and foreign policy. Yep. Yep. Fiat currency.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Be nice, David.
2 cents on the dollar.
Mr.
Stoking
President,
tensions with nuclear superpowers.
The NATO
What could go
declaration
wrong?
that was issued yesterday was very notable because it described China as a decisive enabler of the war in Ukraine for its provision of critical goods to the Russians. That's part of a broader partnership that seems to have cemented in place in the past 2 or 3 years. I think one that you were a little bit doubtful of when we asked you about it some time ago. So I'd be interested to know whether you have a strategy now of trying to interrupt the partnership between China and Russia, and whether or not in a second term you would pursue that, if you could describe that strategy to us. And along the way, could you also tell us whether you think, just to follow up on Felicia's question, that if you were in a room with Vladimir Putin again, the way you were 3 years ago, or with President Xi, that a few years from now you will be able to go negotiate with them, handle them one-on-one?
Well, the first part of the question is, we discussed and I raised in the NATO summit, and others raised, the future of China's involvement, what they're going to do, what they're doing with Russia in terms of accommodating, facilitating them. They're getting access to additional, they're not supplying weapons themselves, they're supplying mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons. And China's position is basically, and I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has, over 90 hours since being vice president all the way through, for real. And by the way, I handed all my notes. But my point is that Xi believes that China is a large enough market that they can entice any country, including European countries, to invest there in return for commitments from Europe to do A, B, C, or D, or not to do certain things. What's happened is we had a long discussion about what we cannot, we have to make clear, China has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity, along with working with North Korea and others to help Russia in armament, that they're not going to benefit economically as a consequence of that by getting the kind of investment they're looking for. And so, for example, we're in a situation where, and we've reestablished direct contact with China after that, remember the balloon, quote unquote, going down, and all of a sudden things came to an end? Well, we set up a new mechanism. There's a direct line between Xi and me, and our military has direct access to one another, and they contact one another when we have problems. The issue is that we have to make sure that Xi understands there's a price to pay for undercutting both the Pacific Basin as well as Europe, and as it relates to Russia and dealing with Ukraine. And so we, for example, if you want to invest in China, as you know this area really well, if you want to invest in China, you have to have a 51% Chinese owner. You have to make sure that you do by their rules, and you don't have the authority, and that you have to provide all access to all the data and information you have. There was a while there, as you recall, the last administration and other administrations, where the access to that market was enticing enough to get companies to come in because they had access to over 1 billion people in a market, not 1 billion, but a lot of people in the market. And so they were doing it. But that got curtailed when we started saying we're going to play by the same rules. For example, the idea they don't abide by the international rules related to subsidizing products by the government funding. So guess what? They're not going to be able to export their electric vehicles to the United States without a significant tariff. Others are doing the same thing around the world. But it is a concern. It is a concern that you have both China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, countries that are not necessarily coordinated in the past, looking to figure out how they can have impact.
Interrupt that impact?
Yes, I do, but I'm not prepared to talk about the detail of it in public. And I think you'll see that some of our European friends are going to be curtailing their investment in Russia. In China, as long as China continues to have this indirect help to Russia in terms of being able to help their economy as well as help them in, as a consequence of that, their ability to fight in Ukraine. The other thing that we talked a lot about is that, and I raised it, and there was, I didn't hear any, I can't swear that everyone agreed because not everyone got to talk about it. But we need a new industrial policy in the West. For example, we talked about how both the EU as well as NATO has to be able to begin to build their own munition capacity, has to be able to.
I will say, and obviously I think this dude is atrocious in myriad of reasons, and that he should absolutely step down, even though I can't stand either party, Democrat or Republican. You know, I do love America, and I hope that at the very fucking least, even if I disagree with the person, he's not like Parkinson's disease patient. So I hope that he steps down. I will say, after that first little gaffe that he had, where I thought it was going to be another debate, like, downhill, and trust me, it's not great, but where he called Kamala Vice President Trump in the beginning, I thought, oh my God, it's just going to get worse and worse from here. He's barely hanging on, but he's hanging on to, like, some semblance of coherence. It's rambling, and it's, like, murmuring, basically, but it's not President Zelensky becomes President Putin, Kamala Harris becomes Vice President Trump in his brain. It's not gaffe after gaffe after gaffe, which I was kind of hoping for, because, like, with how feckless our shitty-ass media is, even though the knives are out for Biden now, it seems like he's going to be stubborn enough, and also some holdouts really do require the dude to have a basic, like, a stroke on stage before they'll actually admit to themselves, maybe he should get out of the race. So I was hoping, like, you know, on a human level, I don't want to see the guy hurt, but Jesus Christ, if that's what it takes for some of these morons to realize, holy crap, maybe this guy, regardless of who wins, should not be in a position of power when we're going through some pretty intense geopolitical situations, then so be it. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen, at least for right now. I know I'm a little bit behind, but it doesn't look like he's collapsed in these little thumbnails.
Generate their own capacity to provide for weapons and the ability to. It came as a surprise to some of us
he did have 2 brain
how we had fallen behind in the West in terms of the ability to construct new material, new weaponry, new everything from vehicles to weapon systems. And so one of the things that came out of this was we're going to be meeting again with a number of my colleagues my European
probably
colleagues,
caused
is what do
by
we
that,
do
or at the
to
very
increase
least
the capacity
exacerbated greatly by
of
the fact that he had
the West, particularly in
brain
Europe
surgery to
and
fix it.
Japan, to be able to generate the kind of ability to produce their own weapon systems. Not just for themselves, but to be able to generate that. It's the same, it's what Russia's trying to figure out. That they went to China and they didn't get the weapons, but then they went to North Korea. But we're going to be in a position where the West is going to become the industrial base for it to be able to, the ability to have all the defensive weapons that we need. That was a discussion as well.
Mr. President, I'm not sure you answered on whether you would be ready to go deal with Putin and Xi 2 or 3 years from now.
I'm ready to deal with them now and 3 years from now. Look, like I said, I'm dealing with Xi right now and direct contact with him. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now.
After he's asked a question, the time between him thinking about his answer and actually saying something coherent reminds me of the exact amount of time where if you were to try and play Crysis from back in the day, or Skyrim or Fallout, but you had a really, really crappy, really fragmented 5400 RPM hard drive, and you're like, oh, there's the loading screen. I'm gonna go make a sandwich, and when I get back, hopefully we're done loading. That is this man.
There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior. And but there isn't any world leader I'm not prepared to deal with. But I understand the generic point is Putin ready to talk? I'm not ready to talk to Putin unless Putin's ready to change his behavior. And the idea, look, Putin's got a problem.
Fighting. I'm not ready to talk to them yet.
First of all,
They need to apologize
in this
first.
war that he is supposedly have won. And by the way, I think, don't hold me to the exact number, but I think that Russia had 17.3% of Ukraine that they conquered. Now it's 17.4.
What is that quote? I don't know what was it? I don't know exactly what weapons World War III will be fought with, but I know World War IV and V will be fought with sticks and stones, something to that effect. I don't think that would be a great idea if it's a nuclear superpower. I see the appeal of that theory because it's, wartime is always historically good for the incumbent. Hence why Netanyahu wants to keep the war in Israel going as long as possible, because dude knows that it gives him cover to stay in power, because you can basically say, hey, I'll step down later, we'll have an election later, but right now we're at war, we really need to keep continuity in the presidency, we can't be changing too much stuff, because then that weakens us. So I see the thought of that, and I wouldn't necessarily put it past him, but I don't know. I truly think that they would rather, because they don't actually believe a lot of the rhetoric that they like to espouse. Oh, this is an existential election. Oh my God, Trump, when he gets in there, he's never going to step down. Oh, I didn't know that was an option. Oh, you could just declare yourself dictator? Yeah, right. The dude stepped down last time. So, and the fact that they were willing to run this fucking idiot, knowing that he's in severe cognitive decline, shows that they don't really think that it's an existential election. So, what do I think that they would probably do? I think that the worst case is they'll try and sub this dude out. If anything, if he loses, he loses. They're kind of like, whatever, he lost. In their minds, Trump will just have such a bad presidency that we'll just rally for 2028 and we'll just get elected then. Now, a lot of the senators probably aren't feeling that way, because if Biden loses, there's probably going to be a pretty crazy red wave, and it's going to be like down ballot. A lot of House and Senate just completely flipping. I mean, New York is being called a battleground state now. It's not even like a safe blue state for Dems. So I do think some of them are like in crisis mode, but I think a lot of the party leadership that are safe are kind of like, chill out, let Trump be president, because they don't actually think that it's going to be the end of the world like they love to say. But I do think a lot of people probably are going to be in crisis mode, but most of the Dem leadership will just kind of wait out the Trump presidency and then probably fundraise a lot off of it, because when Trump is president, a lot of Dems make a lot of money because they can just send out those stupid texts and emails to the shit libs and just kind of go like, Donald Trump said this today. We need your $5 for some reason to defeat him in 2028. And so, or like, I guess he couldn't even run, but we need to defeat his protege, whoever. It's not him I'm worried about, to be fair. It's the people around him, his advisors, his team, whoever is running the scene. See, that, fair point, because they, you know, all the people around him, it probably is existential for them, not in terms of they actually think that the country's going to end and we're going to become some dictatorship, but for them politically, you're probably right. It is pretty existential. I don't know. I like to think I'm pretty cynical, but I don't think that they would necessarily do that. I hope. You know, I'm not super firm on that because I will not ever put it past these fucking cretins to do something like that. You know, let's be honest. The U.S. government in many different ways has done just absolutely deplorable things for self-serving reasons, whether it be individuals or as a whole. So I'm not saying like, oh my God, you're crazy for even thinking that. I'm a little more hopeful, I think, that they wouldn't necessarily go that far, but do I think that they would do quite a bit? Yes. And I think that there's so many like conflicting desires where, you know, if that was a good option for one of his subordinates, whoever's kind of like running the show, it might not be great for another person who's like a shady person in power. So I hope in a fucked up way, maybe there's like some checks and balances, not in the way that the founders intended, but maybe like someone in the deep state's like, no, that doesn't further my agenda for there to be a literal like world war. So I'm going to stop you, Biden aid. Just because you want to be in power more doesn't mean we're going to go start a war. So I hope that they're whoever's in power actually pulling the strings behind the scenes. I hope there's someone sane enough to be like, no, we're not going to literally do the nuclear option just to stay in power. But I really hope my hope is not misplaced.
I mean, in terms of percentage
crazy that we even have
of
to
territory.
like have that conversation.
They've not been very successful.
Being a
They've
real
caused
possibility.
horrible damage and loss of life, but they've also lost over 350,000 troops, military, killed or wounded.
Wait, who are we talking
Damage
about?
and loss of life.
Ukraine?
They've not been very successful in terms of percentage. And that they've conquered now at 17.4. With the exact number, but he is supposedly have won. And by the way, I think, don't hold me to the exact number, but I think Russia had 17.3% of Ukraine that they've conquered, now at 17.4. I mean, in terms of percentage of territory. They've not been very successful. They've caused horrible damage and loss of life, but they've also lost over 350,000 troops, military.
Dude, oh my God. And this is why I can't stand people who will like actually with a straight face be like, no, but if we just keep arming Ukraine, you know, they can win. Okay, say you accept the 350,000 troop number. It's Russia, dude. They have millions of troops in reserve. They can literally just war of attrition in Ukraine. They have better, army than Ukraine, even with our, training and all of our weapons, because Ukraine, you can only, even though I think it was Merkel or someone else, they were trying to spin up Ukraine's military for years, almost like they saw this coming. But there's only so much you can do against a country who's been, building and maintained a semi-strong military, even if it's not as like bloated as ours is. They were able to, means of production like we did in World War II, spin up the wartime economy, start producing tons of stuff, and basically do a rerun of what, like I said, we did in World War II. We just completely shifted the economy, started producing tons of weapons. We already had a lot of trained soldiers. Ukraine didn't. It was like trying to get a pickup basketball team an hour before you try to play the game, and you're just like grabbing people off the street, and you're trying to put together a team that has as much skill as possible. But, even with all the luck in the world, what are you going to do against a team who, they were told about the game the day before, and they're like, oh, okay, let me call all of these college basketball players to come play. Obviously, the random dudes off the street are going to get their asses kicked. And so that's literally what happened in Ukraine. They had no real true standing military. We just were going to try and throw weapons at them and be like, yeah, go fight this proxy war for us, literally tossed into the meat grinder. And people actually are saying, oh, Russia's losing more than we think. Really? You don't really think if they really wanted to expend the troops' lives, which I think they don't want to, obviously, I think Putin actually does care about the Russian people. Even if I'm not a fan of the dude, I think he actually has a nationalistic love for Russia. So what they're doing is they're kind of just dug in, not trying to take a shit ton of land right now. They just wanted the Donbass. But if they really, really wanted to and really mobilized, they could completely just overrun the Ukrainian military. It would be at the expense of a lot of their troops, which is why I think that they're not doing it. And they're just kind of running down the clock. They're basically like, dude, you guys are... We see videos constantly of you guys taking people off the street with their families and shoving them into a van, and the guy looks like he's 55 years old. Obviously, that's not the sign of a burgeoning, healthy military. So honestly, all we have to do is dig in, take way less casualties, let you guys throw as many people at the front lines until all you're left with is literally just women and children and 80-year-old men. And then what are you going to do? You have to come to the negotiating table, because what else are you going to do? Or it gets escalated even further from there, and the U.S. says, fuck it, and then just starts putting down our troops, which in that case, now we have a hot war with Russia, and it could go nuclear at any moment. That's why this, the Ukraine war is the precipice of a new nuclear catastrophic crisis, and it's not being covered as such like it was in the Cold War of, oh my God, we're teetering on the edge of complete annihilation. Let's tread carefully. It's just being sold as no. Obviously, if we just give them more weapons, we can totally help them win the war. When 2 years ago, anyone with a brain is like, dude, no amount of weapons is going to make Ukraine able to beat Russia, dude. There's no way. You're tiny, It's just logistically not going to happen. And so the fact that there was a peace treaty within the first couple months, and then the West and the United States sent Boris Johnson over there to basically tell Zelensky, you better rip up this peace treaty. We're going to continue to funnel weapons into your country, and basically, you guys are the meat grinders. Zelensky, you'll be fine. We'll prop you up as a hero. We'll make you rich. I think he's a little naive for trusting the United States, because once they're done with you, you're done for. Or if you get really lucky, they let you retire to the Hamptons in the United States and become a hero and whatever. But most likely, they'll feed you to the sharks. But we were like, no peace treaty. Your red line is basically, unless they just completely surrender, you're not stopping this war. You're continuing no matter what, unless Putin comes to you and says, hey, my bad, we'll leave your country, act like nothing ever happened, which clearly is not going to happen. That's not a realistic red line. So instead of an actually like fair treaty where it was, hey, this region is ethnically Russian. Most of the people here actually do want to be part of Russia. We are going to annex them. You keep the rest of your country. We're not going to invade, and not all of this like fear-mongering bullshit that Biden and the Dems love to say. You really think Putin's going to stop there? What if he invades Poland? Clearly that's not going to happen, because that would be literally the beginning of World War III. Like, Putin's not that stupid, and I don't think he really cares enough to go annex Poland. What does he really get out of that? He, honestly, I think was just like, no NATO. You guys aren't joining NATO, because that's like obviously a big middle finger to me if you're putting nukes on my border. And we're just going to take this little area that's ethnically Russian. We think that's pretty fair. Just don't be dicks, please. That's it. Just please stop being dicks. And the West and NATO, hence this conference, and through Boris Johnson, we basically like showed up there and we're like, fuck you, dude, for being reasonable. Of course we're not going to do that. Rip up the treaty. And so Putin's like, bloodthirsty motherfuckers. All right, whatever. We're just going to dig in and let you guys throw everyone into the meat grinder until they're all gone, and then you got to negotiate with us. So this, like, I know I ranted for a little bit, but it pisses me off, because we just get closer and closer to potential hot war with Russia, which inevitably means nuclear war, unless you really trust people on both sides to somehow just be like, no, we're going to keep this a friendly fight. We're only going to use guns and regular bombs. We're not going to go with the nuclear option. Yeah, right. So a hot war with Russia almost certainly means a nuclear war. And everyone's just kind of super willy-nilly, oh, whatever, yeah, just give them more weapons. Let them strike inside of Russia, right? No red lines for Ukraine. Just give them more F-16s. Let them bomb Moscow. As if that's not, like, the end of human civilization as we know it. It's crazy. We live in such a clown world. It's insane.
Killed or wounded. They have over 1 million people, particularly young people with technical capability, leaving Russia because they see no future there. They've got a problem. But what they do have control of is they are very good at controlling and running the public outcry that relates to how they use mechanisms to communicate with people. They lie like hell to the constituencies. They lie like hell about what's going on. And so the idea that we're going to be able to fundamentally change Russia in the near term is not likely. But one thing for certain, if we allow Russia to succeed in Ukraine,
Exactly.
they're not stopping
But
in
what's
Ukraine.
funny is, I don't know if you've seen this, Connor. Look up, if you've never heard of him, Scott Ritter. I forget who he was talking to, whether it be Crystal and Sagar, or I think it might have been Jimmy Dore, was interviewing him, and he was a nuclear inspector. He knows a lot about, these deep state programs, and he's ardently anti-war, and he was one of the people really sounding off, saying, you all are fucking insane. You're playing with all of our lives with these nuclear weapons. But if you want a little bit of listening, after all this craziness, he talks about, unless they've been building their own personal bunkers, which they might have been, all of these nuclear bunkers that the United States had built that are supposed to be there for a lot of the heads of state have. Oh, you watched a lot of them on Redacted? Yeah. It's just funny how he's like, they gutted the government. They haven't been funding those in a long time. Like, those things are probably so dilapidated. So, yeah, maybe they have their own personal bunkers. But it's like, someone said earlier, people were arguing about, you know, oh, how would you survive the nuclear apocalypse? And, you know, you'd need to know how to do all this stuff. And then someone just comes in and goes, honestly, man, I know how to survive a lot of stuff. I have weapons, I have medical knowledge, I have all this stuff. But, you know, a natural disaster is one thing. I can try to survive off the land. But a nuclear holocaust is not something I necessarily want to survive, you know, anyways. That's not an existence that I want to live in. So I would just walk outside and enjoy the mushroom cloud and, you know, salute to the human race, honestly. And, like, that's kind of how I feel, is even if these people do have bunkers, it's like, to what end, dude? You're going to come out to a just, honestly, worse than Fallout, probably, situation. I know a lot of people downplay it, and they're like, oh, humanity would survive, and sure, we might survive. Nuclear winter is a little far-fetched, but at what cost? It's like, you know, maybe my instinct would make me want to survive, but would I want to crawl out of my bunker and just see Geiger counter radiation spikes and no one around, and oh, now we gotta farm and rebuild humanity, basically? That's why I say these people are absolute psychopaths, that they can just think about this so frivolously. Like me, someone like me or you could never be in government, because we'd be sitting there at the table like, are you fucking insane? What is wrong with you? But these people just, like, they play war games for fun. And, like, but it's real life. They're playing with all of our lives. It's insane.
I recommend, I know you know this because you've written about it, read Putin's speech after they moved in, what it was all about in Kyiv.
By the way,
it wasn't about just, anyway, read what his objective is. And anyway, but so I think that I'm prepared to talk to any leader who wants to talk, including if Putin called me and wanted to talk.
Yep.
Last time I talked to Putin was trying to get him to work on an arms control agreement related to nuclear weapons in space.
People all need to go, like,
that didn't go very far. So my point is, I'm prepared to talk to anybody, but I don't see any inclination. There is an inclination on the part of the Chinese to keep in contact with me, because they're not sure where this all goes. And look what's happened in Asia.
Wake the fuck
We
up
have
from their
strengthened
sociopathy.
the Asian Pacific area more than anyone else has. We just put together with, today I brought on, I asked our NATO allies that we bring on the group from the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Australia. I already mentioned Australia. And I met twice now, I think, with the 14 leaders of the Pacific Island nations. And we've slowed down what's going on there. We've slowed down China's reach. But there's a lot of work to do. This is a moving target, and I don't take it lightly.
And to the next person that I've...
Assam from NPR.
Oh, NPR.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asma Khalid with NPR. I have two questions. Earlier, you spoke about the ceasefire plan between Israel and Hamas. We're now looking at 10 months of war, and I'm curious if there's anything that you feel personally you wish you would have done differently over the course of the war. And then secondly, if I may, I wanted to ask you about your presidential campaign. I remember covering your campaign in 2020, and there was a moment where you referred to yourself as a, quote, bridge candidacy, a transition to a younger generation of leaders. I want to understand what changed.
Two things. Let's go back to when you talked about would I have changed anything that's happening with Israel and the Palestinians and the Palestinian movement. The answer is, as you recall, from the very beginning, I went to Israel, but I also got immediate contact with al-Sisi in Egypt. I met with the King of Jordan. I met with most of the Arab leaders to try to get a consensus going as to what had to be done to deal with getting more aid and food and medicine into the Gaza Strip. And we pushed it really hard. And Israel occasionally was less than cooperative, number one.
Dude, Israel relies on your giving them money and weapons. Are you fucking kidding me? It's just such a joke, and I'm not gonna rant for too long on this, but it's just such a joke that we were like, oh, Israel's not letting in aid to Gaza, and they're like killing a bunch of innocent civilians. So instead of, I don't know, exerting pressure on them and saying, hey, we're not gonna give you any more shit if you don't let us like try to help these civilians, and basically like flexing your muscle and being like, no, fuck you, we have the power here. Let us, you know, give food and water and medicine to these people. Instead of that, we're like, oh, actually we're gonna airdrop, which we ended up killing some people by airdropping supplies. And then we're gonna build a pier. We're going to, instead of just telling Netanyahu, fuck off and let the trucks go through, we're gonna construct a makeshift pier. It's such a joke. If you were to write that in a movie, you know, if this would be the plot of some satirical book, people would go, that's a little far-fetched. Maybe you should make it a little bit more realistic. But this is real life. It's insane. All he would have to do is just say, Netanyahu, fuck off, and let this through so that we can like help people, or you're just not going to get any more of your stuff.
The Israeli War Cabinet, I've been dealing with Israel since Golda Meir. Some of the reporters around here cover me all the time have heard me say this. The first time I met with Golda Meir, I sat across from her at her desk, and her assistant was Rabin sitting next to me. That's how far back I go. I know Israel well, and I support Israel. But this war cabinet is one of the most conservative war cabinets in the history of Israel. And there's no ultimate answer other than a two-state solution here. And so what was able to be done in terms of the plan I put together was it would be a process for a two-state solution. And we get the Arab nations to, particularly from Egypt to all the way to Saudi Arabia, to be in a position where they would cooperate in the transition so that they could keep the peace in Gaza without Israeli forces staying in Gaza. The question has been from the beginning, what's the day after in Gaza? And the day after in Gaza has to be, the end of the day after has to be no occupation by Israel on the Gaza Strip, as well as the ability for us to get in and out as rapidly as you can, all that's needed there. I've been disappointed that some of the things that I've put forward have not succeeded as well, like the port reattached from Cyprus. I was hopeful that would be more successful. But that's why when I went to Israel immediately after the massacres that occurred at the hands of Hamas, the one thing I said to the Israelis, and I met with the War Cabinet and with Bibi, don't make the same mistake America made after bin Laden. There's no need to occupy anywhere. Go after the people who did the job. You may recall, I still get criticized for it, but I was totally opposed to the occupation and trying to unite Afghanistan. Once we got bin Laden, we should have moved on, because it was not in our, no one's ever going to unite that country. I've been over every inch of that, not every inch, the entirety from the poppy fields all the way to the north. I said, don't make the same mistake we made. Don't think that's what you should be doing, is doubling down. We'll help you find the bad guys, Sinwar and company. And all this criticism about I wouldn't provide when the weapons they needed. I'm not providing them 2,000-pound bombs. They cannot be used in Gaza or any populated area without causing great human tragedy and damage. But remember what happened when you had the attack on Israel with rockets and ballistic missiles.
Oh.
I was able to unite the Arab nations as well as Europe, and nothing happened. Nothing got hurt. It sent an incredible lesson to what was going on from the Middle East. So there's a lot of things, in retrospect, I wish I had been able to convince the Israelis to do. But the bottom line is we have a chance now. It's time to end this war. Doesn't mean walk away from going after Sinwar and Hamas. And if you notice, you know better than most, there is a growing dissatisfaction on the West Bank from the Palestinians about Hamas. Hamas is not popular now. And so there's a lot of moving parts. I just have to keep moving to make sure that we get as much done as we can toward a ceasefire.
So let's just let's remember the question is, would you have done anything differently? And that was his rambling ass answer.
A ceasefire and get those. And by the way, look at the numbers in Israel. I mean, my numbers are better in Israel than they are here. But then again, they're better than a lot of other people here too. But anyway.
Candidacy in 2020, you referred to yourself as being a bridge candidate for a younger, fresher generation of Democratic leaders, and I wanted to know what changed.
What changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited in terms of the economy, our foreign policy, and domestic division. And
used to be
I think, I won't put words in anybody's mouth.
Anymore. They're pretty partisan.
Most
Some of the people
presidential
who made
historians give me credit
this situation that we're in.
for having accomplished more than most any president since Johnson and maybe before that to get major pieces of legislation passed. And what I realized was my long time in the Senate had equipped me to have the wisdom to know how to deal with the Congress to get things done. We got more major legislation passed that no one thought would happen. And I want to finish it, to get that finished. If tomorrow, if we had a circumstance where there was a lineup and I hadn't inherited what I did and we just moved things along, anyway, it's going to change.
Last question.
Oh, I need to go back for that.
I hadn't inherited what I did and we just moved.
I was just about to say, what is he even saying right here? And I think he even realized, what the fuck am I saying? And he did one of the classic, I'm bailing on this thought, and I'm just, never mind. Anyways.
Things along. Anyway, it's going to change.
Last question.
Haley Bull, Scripps. Or no, Josh Weingrove, I'm sorry, was the next one. I'll do two more questions.
Two more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of your colleagues, Democrats on the Hill, are watching tonight as they assess what they want to say about your candidacy. I'm wondering how you're thinking of this right now. It seems like your answer is clear, but they're watching how things go tonight, tomorrow in Michigan, next week in Texas and Nevada. Are you thinking that way about how the next week or two goes would inform your...
Am I using that way, you say?
Are you thinking that way about how the next 2 weeks go? Will that affect your decision, or are you fully determined on running in November as the party's nominee?
I'm determined on running, but I think it's important that I allay fears by let them see me out there. Let me see them out, for the longest time it was, Biden's not prepared to sit with us unscripted. Biden's not prepared to, anyway. And so...
Oh, he did it again! Anyway, he just literally gets halfway through a thought and then bails on the thought completely. Because he realizes, shit, I forgot where I started this sentence, so I can't finish the sentence without sounding like an idiot. Holy crap, dude. Oh my god, so basically... That means, this was one of his last chances to come out and be like, yeah, I'm going to gracefully step down and let someone else be the nominee. So I think the power players behind the scenes, the Obamas of the world and like the other Democratic mega donors, they're gonna have to, take the kid gloves off for getting this dude out of the race. But they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't, because say he leaves and they try to replace him with someone who's like moderately popular, which there's not many, everyone always says Gavin Newsom, but I live in California. The dude's a fucking joke. And like half the people here don't like him, barely enough to get him elected. You really think the rest of the world, seeing the state of California, are going to go, yeah, I want the country to be run by that guy. And then also, if they try to do that, Kamala can just, if she really wanted to, she could just hit the nuclear option, not literally, but just go, you know what? How dare you usurp and try to replace a black woman of color? And black, yeah, I know, redundant, whatever. My wife is very sarcastic. But like, how dare you try to replace a woman of color who would be a historical president and try to put, they'd have to put some minority identity, because they've kind of boxed themselves in by playing identity politics so much that like they fall victim to their own hubris and basically be like, fuck, we have to put someone like, they wouldn't put a Stacey Abrams in there. She doesn't have the name recognition, and I honestly think she's a little bit too progressive for what the Democratic establishment wants. They can't do a Gavin Newsom, A, because he's like a sleazeball, but also because Kamala could totally play the, oh, of course, just putting another white man in charge, typical, and just nuclear option them with that. I guess they could try to go with Buttigieg, because even though he's a white man, he's gay, so they could play that card. But it's just so funny how they've identity politics themselves into a box now. And so even if they knock him out with like some force, regardless of how they accomplish that, it's just funny, because if she doesn't want to play ball and just step down, because this is honestly her only shot at being president. It's not like if she would, I'll step aside for this time, but then I'm going to run again in the next 4 years. No one liked her the first time. She barely made it into the vice presidency. So this is her one shot to be president of the United States. And she seems like the type of person who wouldn't relinquish power easily unless they literally said, we're going to JFK you, if you play this way. So the Dems are fucked no matter what they do. It's just hilarious because, like, they did it to themselves.
What I'm doing is, and I've been doing, I think we've done over 20 major events, from Wisconsin to North Carolina to demonstrate that I'm going out in the areas where we think we can win, where we can persuade people to move our way, or people are already there. And here, look, the other thing is, we have the most extensive campaign organization of anybody's had in a long, long time. We have well over 1,000 volunteers knocking on doors, making phone calls, making tens of thousands of phone calls. We have headquarters, I forget exactly how many, I want to cite a number and then find out I'm off, but we have scores of headquarters in all the toss-up states. We're organized, we're moving, and that's awful hard to replace in the near term. And so, and here's the other thing. I was in the Senate a long time. Very proud of what I've done in the Senate. I was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee.
I'm very proud of what I've done in the Senate, he says, as he was the author of the crime bill and the bankruptcy bill. Two just gorgeous pieces of legislation. One, put a bunch of minorities in jail for the crime of nonviolent drug possession. And I'm not like saying that there should be no penalties for drug possession whatsoever, but the whole tough on crime approach didn't exactly get rid of drugs, did it? War on drugs didn't really work, did it? And he was the one that was quoted as saying, I want to basically throw you in jail for everything except for jaywalking. And then it was pretty clear that it was going to be enforced more against minorities than it was on, white people, but it also affected white people. Anyone who basically got caught just even with weed was just thrown in the clink for sometimes exorbitant amounts of time, even life in some cases. And then the bankruptcy bill making it so that normal people couldn't declare bankruptcy in certain situations where corporations could and basically get off the hook. But fuck you if you're a normal person. No, you're going to have to pay that debt back. No, screw you.
Committee for a long time, and I was chairman or ranking member and chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I'm going to be going down to the Johnson Library. Anyway, I'm going to be going around making the case of the things that I think we have to finish and how we can't afford to lose what we've done or backslide on civil rights, civil liberties, women's rights. There's that little button we have. Control guns, not girls. I mean, the idea we're sitting around, this is where Kamala's so good as well. We're sitting around, more children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death. The United States of America.
Oh my God.
What the hell are we doing? What are we doing? We got a candidate saying, promised the NRA, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. You got a Supreme Court that is what you might call the most conservative court in American history. This is ridiculous. There's so much we can do still, and I'm determined to get it done. It's about freedom. And by the way,
Awakened.
I'll
Yeah,
end
what
this.
was that,
Well,
dude?
I'm not going to do that.
It's
Haley
like
has
they
to
gave
come
him
up too.
a extended release capsule of stims, and they all just smacked
I
all in
remember
one moment.
I made
What the fuck
a
was
speech on
that?
democracy in Philadelphia at Independence
Like
Hall.
a tiny little
And
spike
I'm
of
not being
roid
critical,
for a
just
second.
observing.
Got the old
The bulk of
man
the press,
finger
what the hell is he
point,
talking
too.
about that for?
The hell was that?
You did. Democracy's not an issue. Democracy's not an issue. Except the polling data showed 60% of the people knew I was right, thought I was right. I'm not asking you a question. You don't have to answer, obviously. But do you think our democracy is under siege based on this court? Do you think democracy is under siege based on Project 2025? Do you think he means what he says when he says he's going to do away with the civil service, eliminate the Department of Education, make sure, I mean, we've never been here before. And that's the other reason why you say, hand off to another generation. I've got to finish this job. I've got to finish this job because there's so much at stake.
Second wind.
You had some discussions over the past few days with your press secretary about the question of health exams, and you said you take a cognitive test every day in this job. Are you open to taking another physical or test before the election? Governor Whitmer of Michigan, for instance, said it wouldn't hurt to take a test.
Well, look, two things. One, I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist.
Oh my God. Oh, it couldn't be more ironic. I've taken 3 significant neurological tests. Wow. The irony just writes itself. But on that topic, that's horseshit. Because KJP, his press secretary, was already caught in lies regarding this whole Parkinson's expert. But the base, thing is, if you think that you're so competent, taking a test should be really easy, right? It should be a no-brainer, no pun intended, to just take it. I'm so confident in myself. Sure, I'll take it, and I'll show you all that you're just a bunch of babies who are worrying about nothing. But this whole bluster about how every day is a test. Well, every day we see you make another fucking gaffe, dude. So if this is the test, you've failed like 1,000 times by now. So this whole, I've taken 3 intense neurological tests to his White House doctor is a family friend. And not only a family friend, but he tried to go into business with Joe Biden's brother. So let's not exactly say that this guy is the most impartial actor here, you know, telling the truth no matter what.
In each case, as recent as February, and they say I'm in good shape, okay? Although I do have a little problem with my left foot because it's not as sensitive because I broke my foot and didn't wear the boot.
Oh, I'm sure that's the problem.
But I'm
That's
good.
the problem. Your left foot.
I'm
is
tested
not as
every
sensitive
single
as it
day
should be, Joe.
about
Yeah,
my
I'm sure.
neurological capacity, the decisions I make every day. You talk to my staff, all of you talk to my staff. Sometimes my staff talks a lot. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think you have them telling you that all the major ideas we've undertaken haven't been in part initiated by me. I remember when the staff and I said, I'm going to go to South Korea, we're going to get the chip. What are you doing? I'm going to get Japan and Korea back together again after essentially having hostilities toward one another. Yeah. What are you doing? I'm going to go to South Korea, we're going to get the chip. What are you doing? I'm going to get Japan and Korea back together again after essentially having hostilities toward one another since the end of World War II.
Glitch?
I'm going to
Was that
move and see that we
intentional?
can expand it. You know, the only thing age does is help you with it. Creates a little bit of wisdom if you pay attention. And
Or
so
you get
the point I'm
Parkinson's
making
and you
is,
can't function as a
I think
regular
it's
human
important
being, let alone the president. That's
that
another thing age potentially does.
If the neurologist tells me he thinks I need another exam, and by the way, I've laid every bit of the record out. Hadn't hidden a thing. You ought to record out. Hadn't hidden a thing. You ought to ask Trump for his, okay?
Haven't hidden a
I
thing.
laid it all out.
It took me a little bit to understand what the fuck
Every single day, I'm surrounded by good docs.
was.
If they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think it's a problem, they think I should have a
He's ordering to
neurological
take
exam
out or
again,
talking to an
I'll do
invisible
it.
man.
No one's suggesting that to
What
me
they
now.
tell him to do is
And I'll ask you another question. No matter
Imagine
what I
there's someone
did,
standing right
no
here,
one's going to be
Joe. Probably
satisfied.
makes it easier for
Did you have 7 docs? Did you have 2? Who'd you have? Did you do this? How many times did you? So I am not opposed if my doctors tell me I should have another neurological exam, I'll do it. But that's where I am. Haley Bull, Scripps.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said you're making decisions on a day-to-day basis when it comes to support for Ukraine. Does that mean you have not closed the door on further considering lifting restrictions for U.S.-made weapons inside Russia? And if I may, your convention is coming up where your delegates are pledged to make you the official nominee. If they have second thoughts.
Okay. This is really mean. And I don't actually mean this in a, like, malicious way. Just pointing something out. But damn, look at the beak on her. Holy shit. That's a nose. That is quite a nose, man. And I really hope that she's asking this question in a way of basically being like, please don't lift restrictions on Ukraine. Please don't make it easier for them to start World War III. And I really hope that she's not asking it in the type of way where she's like, are you saying that you might be open to letting Ukraine bomb Moscow and potentially get us all killed in thermonuclear war? Maybe? If she's one of those people, like the reporters who are basically trying to egg on the war, then fuck you. Your nose is atrocious. But if she's asking, trying to avoid it, then I'll be nice.
Are they free to vote their conscience?
Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want, but I get overwhelming support. Overwhelming support. I won, I forget how many votes I won in the
had
primary.
some curve to it, man.
Overwhelming.
God damn.
And so
I'm not saying I
tomorrow,
have
if
the,
all of
like,
a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says we want somebody else, that's the democratic process.
I am Armenian.
It's not going to happen.
They vote for someone else?
Sure. Look. I'll end this with this.
Jack.
I served in the Senate a long time. I understand the impetus
They got this. I just realized they got
of
this
candidates running for local office
dude's facial expression.
and whether they think
something else.
the topic can help them or not. In my state of Delaware, which was a very, at least a purple, it was a red state when I started, in terms of we now talk red and blue. I don't recall most of the Democratic presidents winning my state when I was a candidate. The truth of the matter is, I understand the self-interest of every candidate. If they think that, you know, running with Biden at the top is going to hurt them, then they're going to run away. I get it. But so far, go and look at the polling data in their states. Look at the in-depth, and by the way, I think you'd all acknowledge, and you're all experts. I'm not being solicitous about the president. You're experts on this stuff.
Part of every single gang in America.
How accurate does anybody think the polls are these days?
Dude reps every set.
I can give you a series of polls where you have likely voters, me versus Trump, where I win all the time. When the unlikely voters are voting, he wins sometimes. So bottom line is all the polling data right now,
Why
which
not,
I think is
right?
premature because the campaign
Vote
really
for
hasn't even started.
Senility is
I mean, it
a
hadn't
vote for
started in earnest yet. Most of the time, it doesn't start till after September, after Labor Day.
Is that Trump?
So,
Am I seeing that right? Is that
A
Trump?
lot can happen. But I think I'm the best I believe I'm the best qualified to govern. And I think I'm the best qualified to win.
See how he
But there are
wraps
other
this
people
thing
who
up.
could beat Trump too. But it's awful start from scratch. And, you know, we talk about, you know, money raised. We're not doing bad. We got about $220 million in the bank. We're doing well. So with that, you have any want to follow up on any of that you just asked me?
Yes. You earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Yes.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump, would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win.
It's looking pretty clear that that's the situation, Joe.
No one's saying that. No poll says that.
Oh, I hate when he uses this.
Thank
This ends tonight's press conference.
Thank you. No, I gotta get out of here before my
Thanks,
brain
everybody.
breaks out.
This concludes.
Respectfully,
Look at
earlier
this
you
knives out, and then
misspoke
KJP is gonna come out there and
Vice
be like,
President
no more
Harris as
questions.
Vice President
Oh my God, we actually
Right
made
now,
it through
Donald
all the
Trump
way.
is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you
Yeah.
combat that criticism from tonight?
He gets this like. This
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's press conference. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
He's lost. Oh my God, he actually made his way off stage. He found his way off stage. He didn't turn into Roomba. But wow, that was Joe Biden's press conference. We can't really see the comments or chat because they have turned them off. But I'm kind of excited. Obviously, I was recording this, but I really want to see everyone else's live coverage too. We are looking like a joke of a nation right now. The fact that he's going to be stubborn and not stand down means that it's going to be an interesting next week or two as, you know, more of the party leadership, you know, kind of elbows Joe out of there. Maybe someone pushes him down Air Force One, honestly. Like, I mean, that's... I don't know what else they're going to do, but like I was saying earlier, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, because God forbid we get Kamala. So, yeah. I just wanted to react to that. He went a lot longer than I thought. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just hop on for 45 minutes. No way Joe Biden's going to speak for Trump level, you know, press conference or speeches, because Trump would go hours. The dude loves the crowd, loves like engaging. He's a showman. And he actually went longer than I thought, but if anyone thought he was going to come out there and be like, oh, it's just been a rough couple of weeks, but I'm with it, and give an inspiring speech like Unlimited Liquid said, then obviously that's delusional. And I don't think that the reporters were, I mean, they asked him some questions that were poignant on that level, but I think that they should have been a lot more direct and like given him the little shiv, you know, with their questions, and been like, dude, we all have eyes and ears, and a lot of us have experienced, whether it be grandparents or parents, you know, if you're a middle-aged person, your parents are old, and you might have experienced what it's like to have an elderly person in your family, and he's worse than a lot of, you know, my family members that I saw get old and senile. So they should have just straight up said it. It's time, dude. We're down to the wire here. It's crazy that this guy is president right now, but let alone, are you kidding me, another 4 years where it's just going to be like an exponential fall off of this guy's brain? How do you not get up there as a reporter and go, hey man, like I said, we all have eyes and ears, and we can see that you're in severe cognitive decline. So I'm just asking you, please, everyone, even your friends, are saying step down. So just please put your ego aside. I know that they want to keep their job and they got to be professional, but oh my God, I wouldn't keep a job long, because I'd be up there like, dude, anyone but you. And I can't stand Kamala, but Jesus Christ, we need someone who actually can string together a sentence. That's how low the bar has fallen. It's unbelievable. God help us all. Hair on the back of my neck standing up with this guy's finger on the nukes. Yeah, exactly, dude. It's crazy. Especially when we're in the new Cold War with the Ukrainian war. The fact that, like, this dude is supposed to be keeping us out of World War III is unbelievable. Same man, save us all. Yeah, God help us all, dude. Absolute joke. I don't know what I expected. I'm gonna go watch some other people's coverage of this while I make dinner and contemplate moving to a different country. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks for chilling, Connor, and thanks for stopping by, Unlimited.